Golden Black Live, Brian Newbert, Kyle Charters. There's no graphics, so Brian is at the far, all the way
Hi.
over there. Kyle's right here. And we also want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day, State HDI tonight, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, TrentIsMyAgent.com, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And John Basham, I saw John at an event this week. He loves the show, and they're always in the office watching it. I don't know if they're doing that today, but if they are, we appreciate your sponsorship. And also, obviously, John Basham and Basham Rentals, one of the leaders in student apartment rental on campus in West Lafayette. All right, Brian, we brought you on we're going to talk recruiting initially. And I know this is, as we laugh about this in the office, it's after Golden Black Radio, and you're going to say some things you've already said. But it's a big weekend for Purdue basketball, but also upwards of 60 guys on campus for football, though not all of them prospects, which you have explained, I know, a time or two.
Apparently, Darrell Hazel said on his radio show the other night that they're going to have upwards of 60 recruits on campus. Understand that doesn't mean 60 recruiting targets. That means 60 people who are coming as recruits. That could mean people who camped in the summer. That could mean high school teammates of people who are prospects, et cetera, et cetera. So don't think for a second 60 official visitors are coming in. Purdue has one official visitor coming in, Austrian Robinson, one of its A-list defensive line targets from day one. Kind of interesting. He's got a lot of offers, a lot of East Coast people who want him, but he's been very intent to visit Purdue. He wanted to get in as soon as he could when the season starts. A number of their 2015 commitments will be on campus. Elijah Sindelar, the quarterback, Markel Jones, the running back, Andy Chelf, the safety from Dallas, is making the trip up, and then Peyton Truitt and Ben McCaskey, who will be fixtures on the sideline all year. Potentially some 2016 visitors, potentially a 2017 visitor, Hunter Johnson, who might be the best quarterback in the country in his class, has visited Purdue a number of times. He could be back too. The more you get him on campus, the better, because he's going to be a guy that you're going to recruit very, very seriously. Talked about basketball as well. Kyle Guy and Jaron Cumberland, two of their top 2016 targets, along with Ryan Klein and Grant Weatherford, their two commitments in for official visits. It's an interesting weekend because you got a lot of recruits on campus. You get these kids on campus, you want to show off an environment. They're coming for, an FCS game against a football team that's having a hard time selling tickets anyway. You kind of worry about the environment a little bit, but obviously you want these guys on campus whenever you can get them. So important weekend nonetheless.
In football recruiting, there are some spots that Purdue has some pretty immediate needs as you look at this team and who's leaving, right? Linebackers, corners, tight ends.
Tight end, yeah.
I mean, those positions in particular, Purdue, they don't have a whole lot of proven people coming back
at
a lot of spots
right
there that, guys could come in and certainly have an opportunity to play early.
I think the big one's probably tight end. When you look at their depth chart right now, obviously Gabe Holmes, Justin Sims are their top two players, Delapo McCarthy behind them in certain situations, and then Charles Terwoodzo also is not in the mix to be playing right now, but he is a tight end, so that's 4 seniors you're losing at tight end. I don't know if any of the guys behind them yet have established themselves as that next guy, that person who's going to step right in the spring and assume that number one spot on the depth chart. So Purdue's going to have to recruit numbers and, in a perfect world, quality. Last winter, they looked at junior college players with next season in mind, not with this season in mind, with next season. So if they did it last season in anticipation of 2015, you better believe they're going to do it again this year.
To me, DB too, I think, because you have some questions about where Frankie Williams is going to end up playing, and you lose. They switched to cornerback from this last class to wide receiver, Cedric Dale. To me, those positions, safety probably in particular, they got to hit pretty hard.
We've been saying this for 5-6 years now, but Purdue's got to has to upgrade athletically and from a physical standpoint at safety. I think that's a position it's really hard to recruit really good ready-made players. You recruit a lot of wide receivers, you recruit a lot of corners and move them over. Sometimes you recruit a small linebacker and move them backward. It's really hard to find that good true safety at the high school level, and when you do, everybody wants them. If you look back at Purdue's history, I can think of maybe only a handful of really true safeties Purdue signed. Torrey Williams being one, Bernard Pollard being another. There's a reason at Purdue there always seems to be a walk-on at the top of the depth chart. That I don't mean that in derogatory fashion about walk-ons. It just means there's there's kind of a vacuum there where guys have been able to rise up through the ranks and fill a vacancy.
You know, we haven't really heard much about junior college guys, but you know, when you think about the fact that Mostert and Raheem Mostert and Akeem Hunt are gone. I know Markel Jones has been impressive, and others. They've had 5 running backs already committed. But is it possible that they really may need to go to that junior college to get that type of guy at that position? I mean, I know there are guys on the roster right now that they like, and DJ Knox potentially, and Keontae Green. But do you see that as a possibility down the stretch for that, and maybe that tight end position as well?
I think by the end of this year, it depends what they'll have seen in practice from guys like Keontae Green and, you know, guys like DJ Knox, guys they're going to get a chance to watch all year in practice to see whether or not they have that one guy. Last year, they looked at a junior college running back, too. So if they did it last year, it stands to reason you lose a couple seniors, they might do it again. I'm curious to know what direction Purdue wants to go in at running back. You look at, they took a lot of commitments this year. I wonder if if in their perfect world they want that one guy, or if they're kind of looking at this from an NFL model where you see so many specialist backs now where you have platoon situations. One guy is best at this, one guy's best on third down, one guy's best in short yardage. You got a goal line guy sometimes. I kind of wonder with the volume of running backs Purdue's recruited, not only this class, but Hazel's first class, they signed a bunch of guys. I wonder if that's not the model they're going toward.
Yeah. All right, one thing that Brian does during the week as well is looks at the opponent, and Kyle by definition too, he gets a chance to do that as well. Southern Illinois, dangerous, and why so?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of Purdue here, but when your results are what they've been the last 2 years, everybody's dangerous. I mean, you know, Western Michigan was 1-11 last year. That wasn't a blowout by any means.
But Malcolm Agnew, they've got some talent.
I think that, yes, this is a good FCS team. But as I wrote in my prediction that hasn't gone up on the website before, when the Big Ten plays well against FCS, Big Ten beats FCS. And I think the most important thing, I'm not taking Southern Illinois lightly. They have a very good running back. They're the 13th ranked team in FCS, so they must be doing something right. They already handled pretty decisively another ranked FCS team in Eastern Illinois.
On the road.
They have a lot of FBS talent on an FCS roster, as a lot of teams at that level do now. But I think Purdue obviously is not going to take anybody lightly, nor can they. But I think if Purdue comes out and plays like they did, especially in the first half against Notre Dame last week, I think they're going to have a good chance to be pretty successful.
And Kyle, you know, I was going to say, you've watched a few FCS opponents come through here. What typically does Purdue have to exploit to get that done, outside of scoring more points?
That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is, you should be able to run the ball, I think. Especially with Purdue, the way it's built right now, I think you've got to try and get Mostert and Hunt back to getting some big plays in the running game, which they got in week one a little bit to some extent, though maybe not even then as much as what Purdue had hoped for. But those two guys, I think, can be, in these type of games, difference makers.
Yeah.
And make something happen. Purdue, like I said in the first segment, Purdue's got to do a little bit better job of finishing plays, I think, on the perimeter to get those guys to the second level. But strictly in these games, to me, it all comes down to whether, Purdue can win on the line of scrimmage, toss the skill position guys out, because I think FCS teams sometimes can have some of those pretty decent skill guys because they've come down and transferred down from somewhere else. But, it's right there at the line of scrimmage. Purdue can control the line of scrimmage, especially, in my opinion, on offense, and get some big plays in the running game, then they should be able to win.
3 advantages a Big Ten team should always have, should always have over an FCS team are speed. You look at Raheem Mostert and Akeem Hunt, they should have that advantage. Physicality, Purdue should have that advantage. I'm not going to say out of hand that they do, because I don't know. Purdue's not the most physical team in college football, obviously, and depth. We talk a lot about Purdue's depth. Does Purdue really have depth? Because depth isn't depth unless depth can play. And it's okay to say we have X number of guys at this position, but if the drop from 1 to 2 is so drastic that you can't put number 2 on the field, or you don't feel comfortable putting him on the field, what does that say about 3, 4? Then you don't really have depth. You have numbers, you don't have depth, and there's a difference.
They fill out the depth chart every week by definition, but you're right, it doesn't guarantee that that its depth is big-time football talent. Okay, predictions, which I know are going to be on the site, but what does this come down to tomorrow?
Speed, physicality, and just all the stuff we just talked about. I think Purdue took a big step forward against Notre Dame, even though the outcome was one-sided at the end of the day. I think they played better against Notre Dame this year than they did last year, and they lost by more points. I think Purdue found a rhythm in the passing game for the first time all year in the first half. I think if they can replicate that, they're going to have a lot of success. If they can run the ball, they're obviously going to have a lot of success. Basically, if they can do everything on offense is what I'm saying, they're going to have a lot of success. I think they really took a step forward defensively last week. They were more physical, they were more aggressive up front, and especially in the secondary. And I think if they bring that kind of level of play to Southern Illinois, they should have a chance to be pretty successful. I basically just said they have to do everything.
Okay, but we won't tell how many points, but
hot
you
sports
said,
take
what's,
right there.
what's the one thing you're looking
We
for?
talked to Mike Reese, the play-by-play man for
Right.
the Salukis for the radio show, and you can listen to him on the podcast. But he said if the Salukis would need to score more than 35 points, so he's figuring that Purdue's going to put some points up on the board. So, I think Purdue's going to be able to score. It's just a matter of they can stop them occasionally, and I think they'll be able to do so. I just we saw some film of SIU earlier this week. Had a chance to watch a little. I didn't think they looked real fast.
No.
I thought they looked FCS fast maybe. So I think Purdue should be able to have a speed advantage there, and I think they can win.
All right.
Need to win.
They need
as
to
we said
win.
earlier.
That's
Big.
that is for certain. Okay,
Gotta
the
win.
predictions will be on the site here shortly. Well, we want to thank everyone involved with this fine, what do we call it, live stream? That's what we call it. And obviously Kim and Gordon from WLFI, Allie, who I don't think was here today, but has been helping us throughout the course of the year as well. Our staff, Mark Herman, for joining us too. And we will look forward to seeing you next week as we'll preview homecoming in the Boilermakers game against Iowa a week from Saturday, but obviously the big win tomorrow in Ross H. Stadium against Southern Illinois. Have a great week, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on Gold and Black Live.